3, 2, 1.
Good day everyone, I'm Vishalini Kupusami and my metric number is 270789. Today, I would like to present about the movie that I and my group members chose, which is titled The Assistant. The movie was interesting and I learned so many lessons through the movie. First of all, the reason we chose this movie because it contains abusing power at the workplace. So now, I'm going to use my opportunity here to tell about the movie, which contains ethical issue and the concept that should be applied.
Welcome. Have a seat. Whatever's going on, you can tell me. That's what I'm here for. You're relatively new to the company.
I mean, I've been working here for nearly 2 years.
And you're under a lot of stress. Entry-level jobs in this industry are tough, right? Long hours? First one in, last one out. Good night. You're smart. You have to be smart. It's a tough job, but I can see that you've got what it takes.
I want those new pages.
Into the introduction part. The Assistant movie overall has an ethical issue which is mainly about the gender discrimination. From the Assistant movie, we can watch that a searing look at a day in the life of an young woman in The Assistant has a powerful executive. As Jane follows her daily routine, she grows increasingly aware of insidious abuse that threatens every aspect of her position and life. So for example, in the movie, in the opening minutes, we can watch that the Jane has an entry-level employee at a well-known film production company is on her hands and knees. So for example, she cleaning her boss' office in the pre-dawn hours before other employees arrive. Actually, she gathers up used plates, cups, for washing white crumbs and white powder from a coffee table, and she also spots rubber glove in the sofa, the sickening suggestion what's taken place at the workplace, and she needs to do all the work that night before hovering in the air. She lifts a stray earring from the carpet and tucks it away from safekeeping. She also takes care of other kids in the office. Actually, she is overworked and treated not fairly.
Here and here, initial here, sign there.
Do I need a lawyer or something?
Do you have a lawyer?
I was worried for this girl. I mean, they were just talking about it.
Can you deal with this?
Hi, why me?
Definition of gender discrimination. For example, workplace gender discrimination comes in many different forms, but generally it means that an employee for a job applicant is treated differently or less favorably because of their gender identity or sexual orientation. Even though the words sex and gender have different meanings, laws against discrimination at work often use them interchangeably. Sometimes workers experience discrimination because of their gender, something else like their race, or ethnicity. For example, a woman of color may experience discrimination in the workplace differently from a white female co-worker. She may be harassed, paid less, evaluated more harshly, or passed over for promotion because of the combination of her gender and her race. Some example statements that could be gender discrimination include such as not being hired or being given a lower paying position because of the young gender identity, For example, when an employer refuses to hire a woman or only hire women for certain jobs, being held different or higher standards, or being evaluated more harshly because of your gender identity, or because they don't act or present themselves in a way that conforms to traditional ideas of femininity or masculinity. For example, if a worker who identifies as a woman receives a negative performance evaluation that criticizes her to being aggressive, while men who behave the same way are praised for showing leadership. If she wears her hair short, it's told she needs to be presentable. She may be experiencing the discrimination based on the gender stereotypes, which is a form of a gender discrimination. So we can see that a lot of gender discrimination nowadays happening, which is considered illegal. It has to involve treatment that negatively affects the terms or conditions of the employment. Terms or condition of employment are all responsibilities, rules, and benefit of a job. Most of the time, they are set by an employer or negotiated by a worker and the employer at the time of hire. The unionized workplaces, they are negotiated, agreed on as part of a collective bargaining process. Terms and conditions include but are not limited to the things that like job responsibilities, work hours, dress code, vacation and sick days, starting salary, and performance evaluation standards. So let's see the next part. The number 1, she needs to work in a safe, discrimination-free environment place. For instance, if her employer is required by law to provide a working safe environment that is not hostile to her based on her gender identity or sexual orientation. The number 2, she needs to talk about or speak out against gender discrimination at workplace, whether it's happening to her or to someone else. She can talk about the discrimination that's happening at work at whoever she wants, including her co-workers and a supervisor. She also has the right to tell her employer that she believes a company policy, practice, or manager discriminatory or engaging in discrimination, which is illegal for her employer to retaliate against or punish her for taking co-workers' work. About discrimination, retaliation includes being fired, demoted, cutting her pay, switching her shift or duties, which is like doing the office chores, cleaning, arranging, washing the dishes, or any other actions that has a negative effect on her. If her employer retaliates, she could consider taking legal action. And she also can explore her option with illegal advocate, apply for she can go to the lawyer, talk to the lawyer. The number 3 step, she needs to report the discriminatory behavior or policy to human resource or her manager. Report to HR about her boss or someone else at her company that who has a power. She highly submitting the complaint or report in writing by email or letter and making copies so Jane have proof later if she need it. The first step, she needs to review her employees' policies. Most of employees give them an employment manual or handbook when they start. She needs to review this to find out what policies might be placed in protect her. She needs to look for policies about discrimination, and she needs to find out what her company complaint procedure. The second is write everything down. She needs to write down in detail what happened and when it occurred, including anything that she said or did or any witness or people that maybe have been involved in these decisions, policies, or incidents. So she needs to include every example of discrimination that she can remember. As new things happen, she needs to write them down to avoid forgetting details. And then Jane also needs to keep notes about conversations or meetings that had related to the discrimination, including the HR or supervisor or the person making the discriminatory decisions. And she needs to record the time, date, place, or the meeting who was there. If she are comfortable doing so, she needs to ask any witness. And she needs to keep these written accounts at home, on a personal email account, or in another safe place and not related at her workplace. Jane needs to keep the copies of any complaints that filed with her company and any responses. She needs to keep the copies of any other documents related to the discrimination and any responses. The third step is she needs to report concerns or complaints about discrimination to HR or her boss. This is also known as a filing internal complaint, that we understand it's not always possible to feel safe, comfortable at workplace after talking to her supervisor or co-worker about discrimination that she experienced happened to her. If she takes legal action, there are different kinds of remedies that she can ask for. Some have to do with money and others more about changing the employee's behavior. The first is compensation for lost wages and other economic losses. If the discrimination resulted in a loss of work or income, she had to take leave of absence, lost hours, were fired, had no income for a while, or lost her job and have not found one that pays her as much. So she could also seek for compensation for expenses related to any medical or health treatment that she needed or will need in future because of discrimination. The second is compensation for emotional distress, which could include anguish, stress, anxiety, pain, suffering, loss of sleep, damage to her reputation, and loss of enjoyment of life resulting from discrimination. The last but not the least is reinstatement. If she were fired or forced out because of the discrimination or retaliation, she could potentially get her job back. The concepts that are related to this movie is Kant and moral rights. Kantian ethics are a set of universal moral principles to apply to all human beings regardless of context or any situations. So Immanuel Kant, a German philosopher, calls the principle categorized imperatives, which are defined their morality and level of freedom. Discrimination therefore violates the very core of Kantian moral theory. To say that we are capable of acting on the basis of moral law is to say that we are capable of autonomy, that is literally self-law-giving. If we are able to know that give the law ourselves, we are truly free. There is no freedom without the autonomy. Freedom is not being to do whatever we want. It is being able to act on a law to legislate to ourselves. From a have came to an end point. As a conclusion, we can know that gender discrimination is the unequal treatment of people based on their gender. So that includes granting privilege to a certain gender or marginalizing someone because of their gender identity. Unequal pay, sexual harassment, and restricted or eliminated access to rights like education and healthcare are forms of gender discrimination. On an individual level, stopping gender discrimination requires internal reflection and willingness to change. So as the data makes clear, however, gender discrimination is still a systematic issue. The World Forum estimates that it will take 135.6 years to reach gender equality. So, I have inserted some key ways to end gender discrimination from the previous slides. So, gender discrimination needed to be reduced by using the alternative steps. This is because when a company becomes revolving door for workers and the employees, it will be more difficult to attract and retain talented employees who can always find a mentally healthier and more supportive work environment that makes accommodation for gender equality for all workers. So here, I just want to tell every human being needed to be treated equally and fairly. We need to respect them. So that's all from me. Thank you for watching.